You see, one of the biggest misconceptions people have about dua today, especially in the fast-paced, hyper-connected world of 2025, is that it's something we turn to when things are already falling apart. It's the break glass in case of emergency move. It's the lifeline we throw toward the heavens when our own plans fail. And that mentality, that subconscious belief, has reduced dua from being our greatest superpower to being a last resort. We've stripped it of its central place in our spiritual strategy, and as a result, we're not experiencing its real impact. But here's what I want you to truly understand: dua is not your backup plan. Dua is your first weapon. It's not something you do after you've tried everything else. It's what you do before you try anything at all. And that shift in perspective changes everything, because the believer who begins their task, their day, their crisis, or even their joy with dua is someone who places Allah at the center of the process, not just the end of it. Psychologically, this matters more than we realize. When you make dua first, you're aligning your inner world. You're affirming to your heart and mind that you're not alone in this. You're not walking into that exam hall, hospital room, business meeting, or courtroom with only your own strength. You are stepping in with the calm confidence of someone who has already turned the matter over to the one who controls outcomes. That creates emotional stability. That breeds resilience, because your hope is not in the outcome. Your hope is in Allah, and that is unshakable. Now contrast that with what most people do. They worry, they overthink, they exhaust every option, consult every expert, and when nothing works, then they fall to the floor in desperation. That's not real tawakkul. That's panic disguised as faith. And that's not the way the Prophet Anton taught us to approach life. The Prophet An would make dua for even the smallest of things. He would seek Allah's help even to tie his sandal. Not because he was helpless, but because he was completely aware of his dependence on his Creator. You see, the world today has trained us to be hyper-independent. Especially in 2025, we're told that success is about grinding harder, chasing goals, pushing limits. And yes, effort matters, but effort alone isn't everything. When you begin your day with only your to-do list and not your dua, you're stepping into the battlefield of life with no armor. You're walking into uncertainty thinking you're in control, but that illusion is fragile. One phone call, one piece of news, one unexpected test can shatter everything. So the smart believer, the one who understands both the spiritual and psychological dynamics of success, starts differently. They begin with dua, not as a ritual, but as a weapon. A sincere, focused, intentional conversation with Allah that says, "Ya Allah, I can't do this without you. I'm putting in the work, but you are the one who gives results. Guide me, protect me, choose for me, fix what I cannot fix." And here's something else. Starting with dua changes the quality of your actions. When you pray before acting, your steps are calmer, your decisions are cleaner, your ego doesn't need to win every argument. You don't chase things that don't align with your soul. Why? Because your heart already submitted the matter to Allah. You're not chasing chores, you're walking with clarity. This is not weakness, this is the realist kind of power. Because when you start with dua, you're operating from a position of humility, and humility invites divine help. You're acknowledging your limits, and in doing so, you're unlocking Allah's limitless aid. Now let me ask Yog, when was the last time you made dua before the problem even showed up? When was the last time you proactively asked Allah for strength before the trial came? Most of us wait until we're in emotional pain to connect. But imagine if you lived a life where dua was your constant companion, not your emergency exit. It's like someone trying to build a fortress while arrows are flying. Wouldn't it have been smarter to build the fortress before the battle began? That's what dua is. It's your shield before the storm, not just your comfort in the rain. In a world that tells you to believe in yourself, Islam teaches you to believe in Allah through yourself. Your efforts matter, but your due defines the direction of your effort. If you're not starting with it, you're already behind. So, as we move forward into this ever-changing world, filled with uncertainty, distractions, and noise, don't let your due be an afterthought. Make it your habit, your instinct, your first step in everything. Because the one who begins with Allah never walks alone. And the one who speaks to Allah first always finds clarity in the chaos. Don't wait until you have no options left. Make dua the moment you have a thought. Because when Allah is your starting point, the outcome no longer defines your success. The connection does. Let me ask you something that might sound simple, but it carries enormous weight. Do you truly know who you're speaking to when you make dua? I mean, really, have you paused just for a moment and reminded yourself of who is listening on the other end of your plea? Because this is one of the most tragic things happening in our relationship with dua today, especially in the digital age of 225. We've become so conditioned to superficial communication, quick texts, half listening, that empty replies. Even our conversations with Allah have started to lose depth. We say the words, but our hearts are disconnected. We raise our hands, but we don't feel the awe, the presence, the reverence we should have. And I'll tell you why that's so dangerous. When you forget who you're speaking to, dua becomes a formality. It becomes ritual. It becomes just another box you check off your spiritual to-do list rather than the most powerful moment of your day. You're not just saying words into thin air. You're calling upon Al-Rahman, the most merciful. You're pleading with Al-Qadir, the all-powerful. You're speaking directly to the King of Kings, the one who doesn't need you, but loves to hear from you, the one who already knows what's in your heart, yet still wants you to express it to him. But here's what happens when we approach dua with a vague understanding of Allah. We subconsciously project our own limitations onto him. If our trust in people has been broken, we assume Allah won't come through either. If we've been ignored by those around us, we think Allah is silent too. If our lives are filled with disappointment, we start believing Allah will disappoint us the same way. But Allah is not like people. That's the foundation we need to come back to. Laysa kamithlihi shay. There is nothing like him. His mercy is not limited. His generosity doesn't depend on how deserving you are. His response doesn't follow the logic of this world. And that should change everything about how you make dua. Imagine this: you're standing in a place of pain or hope or confusion, and you call upon the one who created your soul, who knows your voice even when it's silent, who responds even when you don't have the words. You're not trying to convince a reluctant ear to hear you. You're already heard. You're already seen. And your words are being carried up to the one who says, "Call upon me, I will respond to you. Not I might, not if I have time, not depending on how righteous you are. I will respond." You see, knowing who you're speaking to transforms the tone of your dua. It takes it from robotic to real, from memorized to meaningful, from doubtful to deeply trusting. It gives you emotional power and spiritual presence. Because you're no longer speaking from a place of desperation, you're speaking from a place of divine connection. And connection always brings peace. Even the Prophet the most beloved of all creation, would fall into sujood and weep in dua for hours. Not because he was unsure of Allah's help, but because he was so certain of Allah's nearness. His knowledge of Allah's mercy moved him to tears. His awareness of Allah's greatness made him small in humility but huge in faith. But we today have allowed the distractions of this dunya to pull us away from that clarity. In 2025, our minds are filled with algorithms, deadlines, constant scrolling, and in that blur the awe of Allah gets dimmed. Our does become background noise to our chaos. We raise our hands but lower our expectations. We ask but we don't wait. We whisper but we don't believe. So we must reclaim that awe, rebuild that consciousness. Before you say a single word in dua, remind your heart, I am speaking to the one who created the stars, who parted the sea, who made fire cool for Ibrahim Ayas, who saved Yunus Iyas in the belly of a whale, who answered the cries of a mother placing her baby in a river. That same Allah is the one who's listening to you right now. And here's the thing, the more you know Allah, the more you believe in your dua. That's why studying His names, reflecting on His attributes, deepening your spiritual relationship, it's not just an intellectual exercise, it fuels your prayers, it anchors your trust. Because when you call upon Al-Fatah, you believe the doors will open. When you beg Al-Shafi, you feel the healing begin. When you plead to Al-Latif, your heart softens, even before the situation changes. So next time you raise your hands, pause, don't rush into the request. Take a moment to remember who you're addressing. Let that remembrance humble you. Let it empower you. Let it silence the noise of the world and amplify the whisper of your soul. Speak to Allah with reverence, with vulnerability, with hope, because there is nothing more real in this world than that conversation. When you remember who you're speaking to, your dua changes. And when your dua changes, your life changes. Let's be honest with ourselves for a moment. Many of us have made dua, not once, not twice, but again and again, and we felt like nothing happened. So over time, we started adjusting our expectations. We started making smaller duas, safer ones, less ambitious ones. Why? Because we're afraid of disappointment. We're afraid of asking too much from Allah, as though He'll somehow let us down. So instead of asking for complete healing, we ask for partial relief. Instead of asking for success beyond imagination, we ask for just enough to get by. And the problem with that mindset is that it's not humility, it's hidden doubt. Now, I want you to really reflect on this. You're not using your dua the way you should because you're not dreaming big enough. You're asking small because you're thinking small. And what's worse, you're limiting your dua because you've limited your faith in the one you're asking. But Allah is not limited. Nothing about Him is. His mercy has no boundaries. His power has no ceiling. So when you restrict to what your logic can calculate, you're not just being cautious. You're cutting yourself off from miracles that were never meant to be explained by reason. We live in 2025, a time when everything has to be backed by data, numbers, trends, and logic. The world teaches us to measure our goals by what's realistic. But dua is not about realism. It's about belief. It's about surrendering to a realm that sits far above the formulas of this world. When you make dua, you're not negotiating with the laws of nature. You're speaking directly to the one who created those laws, who can suspend them in an instant, who can shift reality in ways you could never plan for. You see, there's a deep psychological phenomenon here. When a person experiences repeated disappointment, they naturally start to lower their expectations. It's a defense mechanism. The heart tries to protect itself from being broken again, but in the process, the heart stops hoping at full strength. And this, my brothers and sisters, is one of the greatest tragedies of the modern soul. Not that our duyas go unanswered, but that we stop asking altogether, or we ask without conviction. But Allah is not like the people who've let you down. He is not like the systems that failed you, or the jobs that rejected you, or the relationships that hurt you. He is Al-Mujib, the one who responds, Al-Karim, the generous, Al-Ghani, the self-sufficient, who gives without calculation. Allah doesn't run out of answers. He doesn't give based on worthiness. He gives based on sincerity. So ask Him. Ask Him without fear. Ask Him like a child who believes their father can move mountains. Because that childlike trust, pure, unfiltered belief, is what Allah loves most. The Prophet told us, when you ask Allah for Al-Firdaus, all Allah, the highest level of Jannah. He didn't say, ask for a spot at the edge of Jannah. He taught us to aim for the very top, even in the afterlife. Why? Because when you know who you're asking, you stop playing small. Even the stories in the Quran are full of examples. Zakaria Asas was old, his wife barren, but he asked for a child, and Allah gave him Yahya. Musa As was cornered between a sea and an army, but he trusted in the unseen, and Allah parted the sea. Maryam As cried out during childbirth, alone and in pain, and Allah brought forth dates from a dead palm tree. None of these outcomes made sense to the human mind, but they weren't meant to. Because dua doesn't operate within your limits, it operates within Allah's mercy. And here's the deeper layering. The size of your dua is not just about what you want. It's a reflection of how much you believe in the giver. Small prayers aren't always signs of humility. Sometimes they're signs of doubt, signs of spiritual exhaustion, signs of disconnect. So if your does have been small lately, ask yourself, is it because I believe Allah can't? Or because I've forgotten that He already did countless times before? Look back at your life. Think of the closed doors that suddenly opened, the tears that turned into peace, the pain that eventually made sense. Was it because you had a perfect plan, or because Allah responded in a way no plan could have predicted? So dream big when you raise your hands. Ask for things that scare you, things that make no sense on paper. Ask for full healing, not just survival. Ask for complete peace, not just partial relief. Ask for the kind of risk that amazes you, not just the paycheck that gets you by. Speak to Allah with a heart that believes in the impossible, because with Him, nothing is impossible. Don't let the world's limitations shrink your due. Let your belief in Allah stretch your imagination. The size of your prayer reflects the size of your hope, and hope in Allah should never be small. Let's talk about something we don't admit often, but deep down many of us feel it. We make dua, but we don't feel our dua. Our lips move, but our hearts are numb. We say, Ya Allah, but sometimes even we don't believe we're being heard. And that's a crisis, because dua isn't just about the words. It's about presence. It's about being there. Not just physically, not just mentally, but emotionally and spiritually. And the truth is, guy, your heart isn't fully in it anymore. And that's why your dua feels dry, empty or mechanical. Not because Allah has changed, but because we have. Our connection has dulled. Not because He stopped listening, but because we stopped showing up in the conversation. This is the age of distraction. In 2025, our minds are constantly pulled in every direction. Notifications, news, noise. We're always multitasking, always scrolling, always reacting. And this constant mental noise leaves no space for the kind of stillness that real dua requires. It's like trying to pour water into a full cup. There's no room left. Our hearts are too cluttered, too distracted, too preoccupied. And so, even when we do make dua, we're not present in it. We might say, oh, astaghfirullah, but we're thinking about our bills. We ask for barakah, but we're checking our phone while doing it. We beg for guidance, but we're planning our next move ourselves before we even say Ameen. There's no depth, no reflection, no surrender. And the danger is this: when the heart is not involved, dua becomes a ritual, not a relationship. But let's take a step back and remember, dua is meant to be personal. It's meant to be raw. It's meant to be messy. It's not always a perfectly phrased request. It's your soul opening up to its creator. It's the most real conversation you'll ever have. And yet, we often treat it like a script, repeating memorized words without engaging the heart that's supposed to be behind them. Now think about this. When you speak to someone you love, someone you trust, someone who truly listens to you, how do you speak? You pause. You reflect. You choose your words carefully. You express your emotion honestly. Why? Because you know they care. You feel safe being vulnerable. And that's exactly the way we're meant to come to Allah. With vulnerability, with presence, with the raw emotion we hide from everyone else. You see, Allah doesn't want robotic words. He doesn't need poetic phrases. What He wants is sincerity. Even if all you can say is, "Why ya Allah, I don't even know what to say, but I need you." That's still a dua. That's still beautiful. That still reaches Him, perhaps more powerfully than 1,000 rehearsed supplications. And let's not forget the Prophet told, "Use you. If you know that Allah does not respond to a heart that is headless and distracted, that's not a punishment. That's a reminder, a wake-up call. Because if your heart isn't present, how can you expect your request to carry weight?" It's not about perfection. It's about intention. Are you really turning to Allah, or are you just ticking a spiritual box? But here's the hoping: your heart can be revived, even if it's numb right now, even if you feel distant. Because the beautiful thing about the heart is that it's designed to remember. That's what udika means. Remembrance. It means the truth is already inside you. You just need to clear the noise. You need to return to the quiet, sacred space where you and Allah can speak honestly, openly, and with presence. And sometimes the only thing stopping you is the belief that your dua needs to be perfect. But Allah is not expecting perfection. He's waiting for presence. He's not asking for poetry. He's asking for your heart. Even a whisper, if it comes with sincerity, carries more weight than a flawless recitation said without thought. So how do we fix this? How do we bring our hearts back into dua? Start by slowing down. Find a quiet space, physically and mentally. Put the phone away. Breathe. Sit with your thoughts. And when you raise your hands, don't rush. Don't perform. Just speak like you would to a loved one. Be honest. Be vulnerable. And most importantly, believe that He's listening. Not because of who you are, but because of who He is. This isn't just good for your spirituality. It's good for your mental and emotional health. When you truly engage in dua with presence, you release pain. You unburden your mind. You realign your heart. That moment of genuine dua becomes an anchor, a place you return to in chaos. A conversation that centers you. And gradually your heart softens again. You'll notice tears return. You'll feel peace even before the answer arrives. Because something inside you will have shifted. Not your circumstances, but your connection. So the next time you make dua, don't just speak with your lips. Speak with your heart. Because that's the part of you Allah responds to most. Your words may rise, but it is